lovelies, I'm KJ, this is Bookish KJ, and without further ado, let's get into it. Less than a month later, and my hair is so ridiculously faded. Anyways, I've been meaning to film this for a couple of days, actually more like a couple of weeks, and I've finally gotten around to it. So we are going to go through my recommendations list for the creators, as well as B, what I will be reading for those specific creators, because I am doing 16. So here we go. First up is Kayla from bookslala. So one of my suggestions would be to pick up a weird book, and by this I mean books that maybe don't have a mass market appeal, or books whose plot is a little bit different from the norm, or books that even maybe have a lower rating on Goodreads, anything like that. Kayla tends to pick up a lot of these, so I feel like that's a solid suggestion. Second up, I have read May's Literally Dead book club pick, which is They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. Or you could pick a book that is based off of May's buzzword, which is, I believe, House or Home. And that is for Buzzwordathon, which is Kayla's. She created Buzzwordathon, and it's running throughout the year, but it's kind of running itself. So that's another suggestion. Also, some of the videos that I've really loved from Kayla have been her videos where she picked books based off of a specific thing. So she did books based off of her zodiac sign, and then she did another video of books based off of her Enneagram sign. So you could do something along those lines, either based off of her signs or based off your own. Kayla also has a series where she rereads some of her childhood favorites, so maybe reread one of your childhood favorites. And 3 specific books I want to recommend would be House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielinsky, I believe. Sorry, that's not great pronunciation. That will be what I will be reading. I tried this when it was her book club pick, and I got to right here. So I'm going to pick this up again and get all the way through it, because she has named it as a recent favorite of hers. But you could also do We Ride Upon 6 by Quan Berry, or Middle Game by Shauna McGuire. Next up, we've got Kaperback Dreams. You could read a horror thriller book. Some of my favorite videos are of her with Larry or her with her sister. So you could have a family member pick a book for you, or buddy read with a family member. Additionally, she has friends that she buddies reads with in her real world, her real life. So you could buddy read a book with someone. That could work. I was recently going through all of the creators and watching some of their recent videos, and I watched a video where she matched books to her socks. So you could even pick a book that matches either your socks or just your general outfit. As far as specific books go, I would recommend The Pisces by Melissa Broder. This is one that Kat has recently read. It was in her last wrap-up, and she mentioned mermaid sex, and it just sounded super weird. So I'm going to give that one a try. 2 other books I would suggest would be I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Anne Reid, and Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. Elias is next, and in a recent video, he talked about reading more urban fantasy. So you could pick up an urban fantasy. Also, you could pick up the Late Night Book Club's May pick. Elias is a member of the Late Night Book Club, and their May pick is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I first heard about The House in the Cerulean Sea on Elias's channel, and so I think that would be a great one to pick up. Also, you could pick up a book that is aesthetically pleasing or beautiful or has a great design, because I believe Elias works in graphic design, and even if he does not, if I'm wrong on that, his thumbnails and his Instagram posts and just everything is so aesthetically pleasing. So definitely, I think that counts as something you could do. Also, I believe either right before or during quarantine, Elias and a group of other people read a book that we don't talk about on this channel, a series we don't talk about on this channel, 7 books. Sure, you know what I'm talking about. And it was before the author started acting a fool, and then they ceased that read along. But to make a long story short, you can read a book that you kind of miss the hype train on. So a book that you feel like everybody else has already read except for you. And if you want some specific book recs, I would suggest Vita Nostra by Marianne and Sergei Dezhenko. I believe. I looked it up, and I think that's how you say it. I would also recommend The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern and A Little Life by Hanye Yamagara, I believe. Again, I looked it up, but I could be wrong. I personally will be reading Vita Nostra, so that's going to be my pick. Up next, we have Monica from Monica Kim. So some of my suggestions would be, for me, Monica represents whimsy. Like, Monica is just this whimsical person. So any book that you would define as being whimsical, that's one you could pick up. You could also pick up the Magic Girl Society's May Pick. That's a book club that Monica is a member of. And their May Pick is Black Sun by Rebecca Rowanhorse. Have that over there somewhere. You could read a book written by or that features a Korean character, or you could read a book with pink on the cover because pink is a color that I associate with Monica. She had pink hair for a really long time. Now it's brown, but it's still her aesthetic in her videos. Features a lot of pink and a lot of pastel and a lot of muted colors like that. And for specific books, I would recommend Sleepwalker by Meg Wolitzer, Kim Ji-young, born 1982 by Cho Nam-ju, I believe. Again, I looked it up, but I'm really bad at pronunciation, so please correct me if I'm wrong. And any of the Grisham-verse books by Lee Bardugo. Becca from Becca in the Books is up next. For me, Becca is the fantasy romance genre. She's just the whole genre. So you could pick up a fantasy romance. You could read Elder Lingalong, I believe is how you say it. She is a host, and May's book is Golden Fool by Robin Hobb. I believe it's either the second or the third book in the third part of Robin Hobb's Elderling universe. So might not want to jump in there, but if you already have been participating, you can pick that one up for Becca. You can pick up a book that was published independently because Becca is a huge supporter of indie authors, so that would be a great one. And finally, Becca has a candle / body butter company. I will link to that below, but you could read a book based off your favorite candle or based off of a scent that you really like, something like that. So for specific recommendations for Becca, I would say anything Sarah J. Maas. I will be picking up The Assassin's Blade. You could also read From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout, or you could read Fortuna Sworn by KJ Sutton. Next up, we've got Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin, and I think it will come as no surprise to anyone that my first recommendation would be to read a middle grade. You could also read Middle Grade Monthly's May Pick, but I talk about that a little bit later with Jade. Additionally, you could read a book from an author that Gavin has interviewed. He's had a lot of really great recent interviews, so you could do that. It's also, I believe most of the authors that he has interviewed have been middle grade authors, so kind of two birds in one stone there. You could pick up a book that has been featured in a book box. I love watching Gavin's unboxings of Alcrate Jr. I think they're very creative, and I think he puts a lot of effort into them, and I think his passion for middle grade really comes through in those videos. So it doesn't have to be Alcrate Jr. box. It could be any book box, any book that has come in any book box. So you could do that. And for those of you who have seen Gavin's TBR game, you could pick a book that you have been putting off reading, which is what Gavin has to do kind of when he has lost a hand of his game. And so for some specific books I would recommend, I'm going to go with the one that I will be reading first, which is Remnants of the Damned by Gavin. I was so excited when this came in the mail today. I didn't think it would be here in time for me to film the video, so I was super excited that that came in the mail. Den of Vipers by K.A. Knight. If you want to put yourself through that, here's your chance. And Frostheart by Jamie Littler. Ashley from Bookish Realm is up next. And when I watch Ashley's wrap up, at first I wasn't staying around to listen to her wrap up of the comics, but then I got super interested in hearing how everything is interconnected and how, you know, you read one issue of this and one issue of that and another issue of this to follow in a bit. And so I've been really invested in those parts of her wrap up so you could read a comic. Additionally, with Beautifully Bookish Bethany, Ashley does the Song of the Lioness read along, and they are on the last book, I believe, which is Lioness Rampant by Tamara Pierce. I would not obviously recommend you pick up the last book, but if you have been reading along, that could be how you cross off Ashley Square. I also think Ashley is really articulate, and when she's talking about social justice issues and when she's talking about nonfiction, I'm always hooked and really like to hear what she has to say, and she's always making me think about things in a way that maybe I haven't thought about it before. So you could pick up a hard-hitting nonfiction as well. And finally, Ashley is a librarian, so you could pick up a book that you got from the library. For me, I will be picking up, let me find it, Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson. She listed this in her video about 100 books that she thinks that everyone should read. And also I got it from the library, so it counts twice. Another one that I thought was really interesting that she also mentioned in that video was The Secret Lives of Four Wives by Lola Sonian, I believe. Sorry, really bad at pronunciation. Or you could pick it up, The Coldest Winter Ever by Sister Soldier. Jade from Sagery Reads is up next, and Jade has such a specific, and memorable brand that narrowing down what I wanted to suggest was actually really difficult. So I did manage it. I have 4 prompts as well as 3 books like everybody else, but it was definitely a hard thing to narrow down. So first off, and one that I'm sure you guys can probably guess, is Read a Polar Fantasy. You can also read the middle grade monthly pick, which I mentioned up when I was talking about Gavin, and their May pick is Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky by Kwame Mbali, I believe. Also, you could pick up a book that has drawings, an illustration. I would even go with a map because Jade loves Carl James Mountford, I believe. So you could do that. Also, you could read a book that has an animal on a cover because we all know that birds are Jade's thing on covers. Birds on covers are Jade's thing. So those are some suggestions as far as specific books. I'll be reading Polar Bear Explorers Club by Alex Bell. You could also do Spellslinger by Sebastian D. Castell or A Winter's Promise by Crystal Dabos. So those are some suggestions for Jade. Maddie from over at Book Browsing Blog will be up next. For Maddie, you could read a dystopian book. Maddie loves dystopian, so that's one that you could read. You could read the Phase and Gaze book club pick for, I think it's just May, and that is The Never Tilting World by Bryn Shapiro, or you could read the Burn Books Society's May pick. I believe that goes for May and June, and that is Docile by K.M. Spara. This is one that Maddie really loves, and I believe she is the one who suggested it for the Burn Book Society's pick, so that would be a great one. You could also mood read a book. Maddie has talked about in a recent video how she loves to mood read, even though she does set out her TBR with her dart game. So you could just mood read a book. It could be a free space if you would like. Or you could pick a book that is based off of a song you like, because Maddie just actually today posted a video like that, and I love that idea, and I actually replied with some suggestions of my own, so you could do that as well. And for some specific books, I'm sure no one is surprised, but I will be reading XX by Ryan Hughes. This is one that Maddie has had on her TBR a ton of times and has not made it all the way through, and I think it's hilarious. So that's the one I am going to be reading. Unfortunately, mine's not the yellow cover, and that makes me kind of sad because I love how obnoxious that cover is, but I digress. You could also read Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor or Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Haro. Erin from Booked and Busy is up next, and for this I would suggest high fantasy / high sci-fi. I don't know if that is a thing, but kind of the sci-fi that has a bunch of different worlds, or that is really expansive instead of like the sci-fi that is set on Earth or that is set on one of the planets closest to Earth. Kind of that kind of vibe, if that makes sense. I hope you guys get what I'm talking about. You could also read a chunky book, because every time I see Erin's TBR in her videos or her wrap-ups, her books are like stacked up this high, and at least 5 of them are like this thick, and I am amazed every time because I don't know how she does it. But you could definitely pick a chunky book. You could read Booked and Busy's May book club pick, which is the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin, and that will be what I will be doing. Or you could read a book with a morally gray character, because she was one of the hosts for War Games, and her kind of track was the morally gray type characters. As far as specific books that you could pick up, I would suggest To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Polini. In a video recently, she did like the whole makeup look, and it was just stunning. You could also read Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter or Jade City by Fonda Lee. Etu Brody, or Bear, is up next, and for Bear you could read a spooky book. You could read the Spooky Bitches book club book pick, which is Confessions. I cannot remember who it is by because I actually just added it to my TBR like 20 minutes ago, but I put it right here. You could read that one. You could also read a book by an Indigenous author, because Bear is a huge advocate for Indigenous authors and just Indigenous people in general, which is something I admire greatly about them and their passion for that. You could read a book about sharks, because Bear loves sharks. You could read a book based off of a video game. I am participating in Read by Daylight, which is a monthly kind of TBR readathon type thing the bear does, where every month you get 3 prompts that relate to the characters in Dead by Daylight. To make this kind of broader, you could read a book based off a video game, or like a book that has video game like stuff in it, or even a book that just has game stuff in it. And then for kind of more specific book recommendations, I would suggest The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. Honestly, anything by Stephen Graham Jones. You could read Sacrifice Box by Martin Stewart, or you could read Aphrodite Made Me Do It by Trista Mater. Up next is Rachel from Let Me in the Library. One thing I really love about Rachel and her presence, especially on Twitter, is that she is constantly hyping up her friends, or even hyping up newer booktubers that she enjoys, and I think feels very genuine, and like she's coming from a very sincere, sweet place. All that to say, you could read a book that has been really hyped up. She will also be one of the co-hosts for Pepathon, which is, I believe, through one of the first weeks in May. I want to say it's May, I think it starts May 3rd, which is my birthday, and goes through that week, but I could be wrong. I will put the details here. And their group book is 3 Little Pigs by Agatha Christie, which is what I'm going to be doing, and I'm also going to try and participate in Pepathon. You could also read a book that is very divisive. I really love one of her live shows where she and a bunch of other people get together and read a book that's very divisive. And I believe it's called Simpson Salties. They like kind of discuss, like, there are some of them that really love the book and some that really hate the book, and just kind of that energy is just really funny to me, and I love that whole idea. She also does the Winers Book Club, which is where I believe they read books and drink wine, which I can 100% get behind. So you could do a book that is based off your favorite cocktail or your favorite just drink. If you want to do a book that is based off of Diet Mountain Dew, my favorite drink, go for it. And then some specific recs. You could read A Series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket. You could read One Touch Man by One, or you could read the Dobby Bad Trilogy by S.A. Chakrabarti. Elise from The Petite Punk is up next, and Elise reads a lot of contemporary, especially YA contemporary, and especially queer YA contemporary, which is not something I pick up a lot, but if I was ever going to pick that up, Elise would be where I would go to get my recommendations. So you could definitely read a contemporary, YA contemporary, queer YA contemporary, queer contemporary. Any of those would work. Also, you could read a book that features music. So we kind of talked about that a bit with Maddie, but for this, I was thinking more of a book that has music as a plot point. So a book where a character is in a band, or a book that has musical theater, or a book that kind of like Daisy Jones and the Six, so a book that follows a band. That's something that you could pick. We kind of covered the punk part of Elise, so let's cover the petite part of Elise. You could do a short or a small book. And Elise has a readathon type series called the Rewind Book Club, I believe, and you could pick a book that was popular back in like the 2010s, so like the Hunger Games or the Divergent, those type books. So for some specific recs, I will be picking up Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. When I went to Elise's favorite shelf on Goodreads, she had a lot of Alice Oseman listed, so that is the one I will be picking up. You could also pick up Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Allaire Sans, I believe is how you pronounce it. I think this is Elise's favorite book. I could be wrong, but I believe I heard her mention that in one of her videos. And you could also pick up Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. I watched a video that she did specifically for this book, and I thought her, the way she broke it down and how she talked about both the things she liked and the things she didn't like, and I just thought it was a really good video. So those are picks for Elise. And finally, we have Sarah from Novel Serendipity. For this, I would suggest reading a manga. You could also read, like we talked about in the announcement video, a book that has teal on the cover. Sarah's TBR is based off of Naruto, which I think is really cool, and I love all the effort and work that she put into that. So you could read a book that is based off of a TV show or a movie. An adaptation would be fine, anything like that. And finally, Sarah is going to be moving to Japan soon. She has been working on this for a while, but COVID has kind of put a wrench, is that how you say it? Put a wrench in her plans? I think that's how you say it. So COVID has kind of gotten in the way of that, but she will be doing that soon. So you could pick up a book that is set in a different country from where you currently live. And for some specific recommendations, I will be reading Trial by Fire by Josephine Angelini. This is, I think, one of Sarah's favorite series. I could be wrong, but I believe she mentioned that in a video. Or you could pick up The Merciful Crow by Margaret Owen, or Crown of Feathers by Nikki Paul Pretzel. Sorry, I am just absolutely terrible at pronunciation. But these are two books that in her videos I have seen sitting on her shelves in like every single video. And they are just, when I see the books on other people's TBRs or on Goodreads or anything, like I think of Sarah because I've seen it on her shelf so many times. So that would be the recommendation I would give for you. And then to cross off my last two squares, I will be reading Pity Party with Sage from Sagery. They are one of my favorite people ever. I love their content. I love them as a person. I love their Twitter presence. I love being on Patreon. Everything about Sage, I love. And I will be reading Strange Grace by Tessa Gratton with Isabella from Babella. She has under 500 subscribers, which is an utter shame. So you guys should go subscribe to her. So that wraps up the 16 books I will be reading for this readathon, which is ridiculously ambitious. And I'm also reading a ton of other books, so we're not going to talk about it. And finally, I want to encourage you guys to read as diversely as possible. I tried really hard with this readathon to curate a group of creators who are all diverse and who all bring amazing things to the table. And I hope that you guys pick books that are also diverse. I think that's really important. And I think diversifying your reading and me diversifying my reading is something I am really trying to do more of, and I would encourage it for everybody. I know I did some specific prompts such as reading a Korean book or reading a book by an Indigenous author, but even beyond that, I really want to encourage you to read diversely because I'm going to be trying to do so as well. I think that is all. This video is probably going to be ridiculously long because I gave a lot of recommendations, and I hope that you guys participate, and I can't wait to see what you guys are going to be reading, and I'm just super stoked about this whole experience. So I will see you guys next time. If you would like to, you could hit subscribe, you could like this video, you can follow me on any of the social media that I'll have listed below, and I think that's it. So bye.